Well, I gotta give it to Quinn, man. The Minnesota Wild got it done, eliminating the Dallas Stars in 6 games. 5-2 victory in Game 6 yesterday, and Quinn Hughes, former Vancouver Canucks captain, ended up with 2 goals and an assist. So, yeah, the story is changing for Quinn Hughes, and that includes the future of him and his career. But with that said, we have some updates from Elliotte Friedman from the recent 32 Thoughts podcast that dive into a lot of Minnesota Wild and Vancouver Canucks notes. Big shout out over to Vancouver Canucks News Summaries, who summarized the Elliotte Friedman podcast from this morning. We also have some terrible news about Filip Hronek of the Canucks, so stick around to see that at the end of the video. But let's dive into where the Vancouver Canucks could be going, which kind of players they could be targeting, and what the future of Quinn Hughes looks like. So let's take a look at V Canucks News' summaries' summary on 32 Thoughts, starting out with the Minnesota Wild. Take a look at this. Elliotte Friedman predicts that Quinn Hughes will sign a 3-year extension with the club. Now, this, of course, is able to be done later in the summer. 26-27 is the last year of his current contract of $7.8 million a year, and with all things considered, Quinn Hughes has been very well documented to have wanted to play with his brothers in New Jersey. Whether or not that's still an inevitability is up in the air at this point. As Brock Besser said in his interview post-Quinn Hughes trade, this guy, even though he cares about playing with his brothers, he cares about winning more. And we had already made a video earlier in the month about whether or not Quinn Hughes may have some sort of an exit plan between him and the Minnesota Wild, whether or not if they win the cup or if they get eliminated early, if that's going to be cause for concern for Wild fans. Although, of course, if you end up winning the cup, I don't think anybody really cares if Quinn Hughes leaves. It's like, oh yeah, you got your ship. Amazing. Now you can do whatever you want. But Quinn Hughes is a part of a team that's heading into the second round. It's starting to look more like this is a situation in Minnesota where he can potentially win. This is what Friedman says on his next Minnesota Wild note. He predicts the Vancouver Canucks will take a big run at Michael McCarron. That's the kind of player the Canucks will look at, and Friedman says there will be others. Michael McCarron has been doing some pretty good work with the Minnesota Wild this playoff run. He's got 2 goals in 6 games, ended up scoring once in Game 3 and then once in Game 5. Of course, Minnesota winning 3 straight in Games 4, 5, and 6 is what did the Dallas Stars in. But McCarron is an interesting name. He's a big dude, 6'6", 231, a right-handed player, 31 years old, initially drafted by Montreal a decade ago, a guy who was never able to fully capitalize on the strength of his skill and his physical frame at the NHL level with the Habs. He inevitably found himself as a full-time AHL guy for a few years before going over to Nashville and racking up those penalty minutes. Now, this season, he is finally a full-time NHL player. He had been for a while with the Predators, maxing out at 22 points in 70 games. This year, he had 79 games played and 17 points on the season, split between the Preds and the Wild. McCarron is a guy that Minnesota coveted because of his size, because of his physicality, and that's the kind of guy that Friedman is saying Vancouver wants for their own team heading into the next little while. Now, it's kind of funny because some people are not necessarily disappointed with this, but there is this idea floating around that says, hey, like, when are the Vancouver Canucks going to learn? These are the kinds of guys that don't necessarily move the needle all too much in a point production capacity. Are these really the kinds of guys that you want on a rebuilding team? Now, you can say McCarron is 31 years old. There is some long-term leadership there, just due to the fact that he had worked his way up from being full-time AHL status to being an NHL player in the past few years. There is some growth that was held here, and that can be valuable if you want to say that that sort of wisdom and ability to overcome the odds can be applied to the younger guys in Vancouver's organization. But with that said, Michael McCarron, he's not the most important guy out there, if you get what I'm saying. Think of him more so as a bigger, less aggressive Kiefer Sherwood who does not have the goal touch. A guy to have in your lineup just to fill in spots? Okay, maybe. But somebody that's going to be seeking a long-term deal? Not too sure if that's really what the Vancouver Canucks should be looking for, but then again, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about that? Now, the rest of the Elliotte Friedman hit on 32 Thoughts, it just talks about the GM search, and honestly, y'all know my opinions on the GM search. I'm really not that interested in talking about everything with Evan Gold and Ray Whitney and Tambellini and Shane Doan. I gotta say as well, I mentioned that Jamie Langenbrunner in the video yesterday was a former Arizona Coyote. I jumped on the train of thought that was like, all these former Coyotes are coming over to Vancouver. Doan, Whitney, and Jamie Langenbrunner. For some reason in my brain, I had corresponded the idea of Langenbrunner's NHL career with the Arizona Coyotes, but upon further review, no, that's absolutely not the case. The guy was only a star, a devil, and a blue. I don't know, I guess seeing him in the red jersey all those years, especially with the captaincy, was enough for me to associate him with the Coyotes. But anyways, all corrections aside, there are a number of other things that Friedman talks about here. Some of the questions the Canucks have been asking candidates, how long the rebuild needs to be, what are their top 3 picks in the upcoming draft, what they would do with Adam Foote. These are all questions being tossed towards the potential candidates' way, and I do think that it's good just to have a formal search in this sort of capacity because, as we had mentioned, it doesn't feel like that's happened in Vancouver the past few years. When Jim Benning was fired, Rutherford and Alvin were just kind of brought in all of a sudden. There wasn't a big extensive search. But now it seems like the Canucks actually have the awareness to put on a legitimate search for a legitimate candidate rather than just bringing in the next guy. But with that said, speaking about the Vancouver Canucks, one of the biggest stories that's been coming out of the team over the past few days has been the Filip Hronek injury. You see, earlier yesterday, playing for Team Finland at the World Championships in a preliminary game, you had yourselves a big complication. The coach of the Czech team admitted that after the game, Filip Hronek got injured. The coach was obviously pissed off at the opponent's unnecessarily rough play. There's a question mark over Hronek. I'm afraid it might be something more serious. Further to this point, you had yourselves the actual video footage of the clip, and this is really ugly, man. Filip Hronek is behind the net. I don't know if it's his net or the other team's net. And you have the Finnish defenseman Mikael Seppälä, who is also, by the way, a defenseman, so I don't know why both defensemen were behind the net on this play. And the guy is just like dogging on Filip Hronek, shoving his hand and his stick into the guy's neck. Like, what is going on here? Why are you doing that? I can't play the clip, it's copyrighted material, but like, what? What is this, bro? Highly recommend you go out there and click the link in the description. It'll be there for your viewing pleasure, although I don't really see how anybody could get pleasure out of this. Seppälä, bro, what are you doing? This guy's 32 years old, undrafted, has never played in the NHL, has been in Europe his entire pro career, and he's going up to an NHL defenseman and just doing this, whatever this is. Rick Dhaliwal then spoke with Jiří Sláger, the GM of the Czech national team. He said Filip Hronek was injured last night, and he is seeing the doctor right now. Sláger says it's too early to say if the injury is serious or not, and they will know more later today. So I guess later today will be the benchmark for us to know whether or not Filip Hronek is going to be able to suit up for the rest of the World Championships. Hopefully this doesn't really do too much to his NHL capabilities come the fall, but hey, for now, this is our primary focus, right? So with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about all these notes here? Quinn Hughes potentially signing a 3-year extension with the Wild. Michael McCarron, Vancouver's latest target. And Filip Hronek getting hurt at the hands of an undrafted, un-whatever bum out of Europe and Mikael Seppälä. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.